Let us all remember that we are in the holy presence of God.
Sikoy ko kamighimo tol langit. Sikoy ko kamighimo taal dawoy bulan. Ikaw ang nagbuhat sa kabituunan. Ikaw ang nagbuhat sa kalibutan. Manama, mawantog ka. Warag po ko ilingkoy ko. O Diyos, kahibulungan ka. Busa ikaw lang ang simbahon ko.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اجمع شمل المسلمين والكريستيان والأمم في مدينة دماغ وسلم دائما مجتمعنا هذا بالسلم والأمن والتقدم في بلدنا هذا آمين يا رب العالمين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين يا رب العالمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Father, we humbly ask for forgiveness for all the times we have offended you, when we forget to acknowledge your presence in the image of our brothers and sisters, and for moments we fail to be good stewards of the blessings you have given us. Continue to guide and protect each one of us, Lord, that we may always walk in the light of your everlasting love and mercy. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that we may in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
Manama, mawantog ka. Warag po ko ilingkoy ko. O Diyos, kahibulungan ka. Busa ikaw lang ang simbahon ko. Busa ikaw lang ang alagaran ko.
Our Lasallian prayer. I will continue, O my God, to do all my actions for the love of you. Saint John Baptist de La Salle,
Pray for us.
Saint Benilde Romanson,
Pray for us.
live Jesus in our hearts.
Forever.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jemai, the Inclusion Advocacy Unit Head of Benilde Center for Inclusive Education. Once again, happy online learning anniversary. Isang taon na tayo. Imagine that. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. To start, I would like to introduce one of the individuals who spearheaded the collaboration between SpEd and Benilde for the Bayanihan project, wherein Benildean educators trained teachers from different parts of the country how to teach online, during the pandemic. Let us all welcome the college's Vice Chancellor for Academics, Mr. Heronio Ulayao.
Um, Good afternoon everyone. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. First and foremost, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to this, I should say, anniversary session of the Center for Inclusive Education. Benilde's journey in establishing the CIE has been long and at times arduous, you know. But nevertheless, it was the institutional commitment to inclusion that paved the way and facilitated the materialization of the Center for Inclusive Education. As we are all aware, Benilde has been quite a very inclusive institution ever since it started. The very first program of Benilde was the Career Development Program, which was, in retrospect, um, a testament to the inclusion mindset of Benilde. Remember that CDP was first offered in order to cater to individuals who did not have their bachelor's degree and are already working. That's why when the CDP was first offered way back in the 1980s, in late 80s, it was offered in the evening because the target demographic was actually those who are working already. And then here came the School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies. And I remember when I came in um, 2000, it was still School of Special Studies, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, but it has been in existence for more than 1 decade already, and it was catering to an underserved population of our country, which is the deaf students and deaf individuals. So, in retrospect, the DNA of Benilde was actually about inclusion. And kahit na ganon, the journey towards establishing the Center for Inclusive Education was not an easy one because we had to commit ourselves to cater to different kinds of situations, um, like for instance, disabilities, mental health issues, sexual preferences, race differences, and so on and so forth. Napakalawak po ng konteksto ng inclusion, and Benilde as an institution has committed to try as the best we can in order to be really inclusive in the best sense of the word. But admittedly, hindi po madaling gawin yun. It is not an easy task to accomplish because there are still many variables and unknowns. But nevertheless, I think what really defines um, inclusion in this sense is the commitment of the institution to really include underserved population or excluded population uh, in our operations or in our existence. And this afternoon, I'm very thankful to all of you, our colleagues from Benilde Manila, Benilde Antipolo, from other LaSalle schools, from other schools, from NCDA, from CHED or DepEd. Basically, um, sa inyo pong lahat na nandito, maraming salamat for sharing this particular vision with us. In fact, it is our hope, it is Benilde's hope that inclusion would be adopted by by more institutions, because kailangan po natin magtulong-tulong if we are going to include those who are excluded deliberately or accidentally. So probably this is not the first step for every one of us. Maybe we're on the second or the third step. But nevertheless, maraming salamat because we are already taking steps in order to achieve that particular vision. So again, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat and welcome to this forum.
Tama yung sinabi niya, sir. Sana dumami pa yung inclusive schools at mas lumawak pa yung sakop natin. So yun, to introduce our guest speakers, may I call on Miss Jeremy Ashley De Leon, Creatives Head of the Benildean Student Envoys.
Thank you, Sir Jemai. And now for our first speaker who will share his presentation entitled As We Move to Online Remote Learning is Mr. Beni Alfred Estepa. Known as Beni to his friends, he is a faculty member of the Theology and Philosophy area of the School of Multidisciplinary Studies of the La Salle College of St. Benilde. He discovered his love for teaching accidentally after his stint in the Society of the Divine Word Seminary. Today, he considers teaching as a way of life. Aside from teaching, he is also in love with biking. According to Sir Beni, he is a full-time teacher and an all-time adventurer. Once again, let us all welcome Sir Beni.
Hi po. I hope you are all doing fine and in the best of health. So first of all, I would like to thank the Center for Inclusive Education for the invitation. It is my joy and honor to share some of my thoughts, insights, and experiences about this subject, most especially during these trying times. Maybe a little disclaimer. I am not the authority in terms of online learning management. I happen to be just one among those handpicked and trusted to help in assisting our teachers to navigate online. Let me start with this image. This is how our classroom looked like ever since. It has always been like this, time immemorial. Hindi ko maalala kung kailan hindi ganito ang classroom natin. Our classrooms were personal. We were social in our dealings and interactive in our exchanges. Until one day, our classroom looked like this one. Empty, caused by the pandemic. Nobody saw this coming. Some of us began to even argue whether we would like to stop teaching and wait. But almost unnoticed, we still chose to keep on despite the uncertainty ahead. Maybe because it was a lot wiser to continue even if we were unsure than doing nothing at all. So, eto na yung bagong classroom natin. A solitary sacred space with a laptop or a desktop or a smartphone. We thought that this situation is just going to be temporary until such time we realize it is here to stay. For quite some time now, this has been the face of our classroom sessions wherein we were in front of a screen with tiled images or icons or pseudonyms, acronyms, unsure whether these are real people or not, whether these learners are still listening or maybe asleep. A lot of us were bothered or uneasy. Nawala na yung personal and human touch ng classroom. And we repeatedly asked the question, are we doing it right? Tama ba ang online? Here is a study of Adnan and Adwar and others that suggests there is a reason to doubt the efficiency of online learning. The study says students felt that conventional classes were more effective as compared to online learning. So we still opted for this new learning modality, ang bagong playground. But we can't resist asking the question, uubra ba ito? Can it work? I heard this story from a student about a teacher they so admired dearly kasi magaling siya. So every student would race for a slot just to make sure they would land or fall in his class. But came the pandemic and the lockdown. After a meeting or two, the teacher suddenly was gone missing. Until one day, they just heard that he decided to call it off because he does not know how to deliver online. I got this picture from Facebook. I'm sure na marami siguro sa inyo nakakita nito. And the first time I saw this, I could not just but help to feel so ashamed of myself. Ang tawag sa kanila, te. The lady to our left here, if you notice, no, that she came up with a contraption of using strings just to make sure that her device will hold. And from there, she records her lecture. No? Galing. While the other one, if you notice the lady here who is also on an online class, a picture taken by this guy. It is so hard to be a teacher online. This is my girlfriend Lara. She normally works from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. No, I am not exaggerating. Okay? So, looking at this, probably we could say, pwede pala. No? It would speak 1,000 words. Effective nga ba talaga ang online learning? I also got this picture from Facebook from a friend of mine who willingly gave me the permission to use this photo. And it says here, online class. No? I took this picture of my daughter at dawn, 3 a.m. Okay. What is interesting here are her hashtags. Kalagay dito, freezing cold kasi tiga bago yung estudyante. No? Puyat pa more. Mas madaming gawain. Di ba? Di pa naligo. I'm sure yung mga estudyante who are in this webinar now can relate to this picture. Would you also remember this girl who went viral? And in that video, she was complaining na ang dami-daming pinagagawa ng teacher niya na hindi niya na alam kung anong gagawin. And this is another image that would capture a picture of what an online class is now. So kung merong breakfast in bed, ngayon meron ng online class in bed. No? Ayahay ang buhay. Saan ka pa? No transpo rush, no shower, no toothbrush, no fashion, but straight to the classroom in bed. When we realize that online learning modality is now the new normal, one of the initial challenges we all had to go through was a massive effort of training our teachers on online learning delivery real fast. We had to assist many of our teachers be able to migrate their materials electronically to electronic form. We helped and guided them digitize their materials. We tried to equip our fellow learning facilitators with the basic tools, applications, softwares available, and our platform to facilitate learning. So, we technologically prepared and equipped them. I guess many schools were in the same predicament and situation too. However, as we moved on, we realized that as if there was something missing and even more important left behind other than technology. Pedagogy. Pedagogy more than technology. Pedagogy is about the process or manner how you will make learning happen. It's about knowing what method is best and effective in delivering your lesson. It's about understanding who your learners are so that you can best decide what approach to use and what strategy to employ. Let's have a look at this one. So I would like to invite you to use a little bit of our imagination to best appreciate this learning assessment tool developed by one of our colleagues who teaches critical thinking. So it starts with a very short video, probably a minute or two, a video na parang malatulfo style, no? And many of us would always love this kind of video show, no? A video showing himself, the teacher, and the wife, no, who are so upset, fighting it off. They were quarreling inside the car, complaining and grumbling that they have to go through this traffic situation every day in and day out. And almost immediately, he now shows images of EDSA and this data and information and another data and information. After all the data and information presented, the teacher now comes out with a very challenging voice saying, "Consider yourself the new traffic czar. I would like you to propose a sound solution for EDSA." Then briefly, he discusses the task, the rules, guidelines, parameters, rubrics, etc., all in 15 minutes, and ends up by saying, "Present this next meeting as a group. Enjoy." And guess what comes next after this and the remaining time of the class? Consultation and mostly kwentuhan. You saw this already earlier. Actually, this is a class that starts from 7:30 a.m. to 11:20 a.m. Pure lecture. I am not saying that lectures are not effective. What I am trying to suggest is how about trying to deliver this in another way? Here is another research written by Rafi Varghese and Kutichira, something maybe you might want to reflect on. And the study says students wanted the duration of each class to be capped at 45 minutes. In pedagogy, we emphasize or put value to the design of the instrument and tool, so that students are led to better achieve the expected learning objectives. Next is learn to unlearn, unlearn to learn. It sounds like a cliche, right? But I guess I believe that this has a lot of relevance at this period of time. I have nothing against these guys. No. In fact, I sincerely have so much admiration for their dedication and perseverance in trying to perform their duty and make learning happen. But how about considering the understanding about who are our learners? I call our students as online digital native junkies. Our learners are totally different. They have a unique, peculiar language and set of symbols. So when we design our tool, we make sure that they are relevant and meaningful. That one size fits all type mentality of teaching may not be the recommended approach now. Maybe we will have to be more flexible to considering individualized and differentiated type of learning approach. And this will cost a lot from the end. It's going to be and tedious. Just imagine having 40 students listening and addressing to their learning needs all together. Duduguin ka. It's going to be taxing and stressful. So, welcome to online teaching. I'm sure many of you have seen this over social media. So you have here a teacher who is so upset. I can just imagine how frustrated he was. So he would be so tired preparing his material. Uh, and you happen to have a student who would be so disrespectful, he decides to play an online game while he is in his online class. No? But I would probably also empathize with the student because maybe the student is also tired himself. That's why he now resorts to this kind of action. So, what do you think? Ang galing, no? Impressive. Masipag yung gumawa nito. So, guess what is the subject being taught here by the owner of the video? It's a French class. It's a language class. So just imagine if your course is designed this way, maybe the student would think twice before playing Call of Duty in your online video class. And finally, trust. Online learning is not just technology, but a mindset, culture, a way of life. When we say trust, that means we relinquish the idea of control over our learners. We have to trust our learners that on their own they can learn. We have this unwritten suggestion or understanding from our mentors that when we design our course, we try to assume that even if the teacher is not around, the course can run on its own. It can still continue. We are not saying we are going to abandon our students. From time to time, let's give our students that room to navigate learning on their own. To end my presentation, I would like to share an excerpt from a research written sometime late last year at the height of the pandemic. I lifted this from a webinar I myself have attended. I hope the author of that webinar will forgive me for not seeking his permission. So if I may read, since COVID-19 has accelerated the process of online learning, what we teach in these times can have secondary importance. We have to keep in mind that students will remember not the education they felt during these hard times. With an empathic approach, the story will not center on how to successfully deliver educational content, but it will be on how learners narrate these times. So let us therefore continue our scholarly discourse on how we could improve our pedagogy in action. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Ayan, thank you po ulit, Sir Benny. And now for our second speaker who will discuss her presentation entitled Redefining Learning is Ms. Rochelle Martin. Ms. Rochelle started with Benilde in 2001 under the School of Multidisciplinary Studies, Natural Science area. She studied Filipino Sign Language in the year 2010 under the FSLLP and transitioned to Deaf Education, handling various courses and curriculum concerns under SDEAS Academics. She is also part of the pioneering team for curriculum and academic development of Benilde Deaf School. Her interests include curriculum development, best practices, and teacher training. She is also an entrepreneur of Precious Trading Company and What on Earth Incorporated. And also, she is a wellness enthusiast. Let us all welcome Ms. Rochelle.
Good afternoon. Kumusta na po tayong lahat? It's been 1 year of online teaching. And congratulations po because you have survived. So, I just want to encourage you, we can do this po. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, CIE, for inviting me to share about the things that I've been experiencing and I've been learning. Actually, Miss Nikki, the head of CIE, is one of my mentors when it comes to navigating inclusion in so many levels. You have to hear her talk about certain things because when she explains things to me, it gives me a different perspective, it gives me a different sense of inclusion. So, before I start po pala, I just want to say, bear with me if ever you hear the dogs barking po or you hear the cats, the chickens, the birds, even the lizards, because I'm in the province po and there are so many animals around me. Actually, my aunt's po sa table ko. So, but I love it here in the province. Okay, so I am here to share a little about my preparation and experience in online teaching for the deaf. You know, in this time of the pandemic, I'm actually in the process of, of redefining learning, at least my personal sense of it. Why? Because growing up from kinder to college to now working as a teacher, it's always been a face-to-face classroom setup for me. And then things change. I have to adjust to a full online course. And it's a different world and dynamics, right? So I want to claim that I'm doing redefining learning through number one, mindset change. Number two, designing learning activities for my students with minimum hustle and maximum impact. And then number three, being a constantly meditative or reflective teacher. So let me go through it one at a time. Number one is mindset change. So, the world shifted and everything else. So I realized that my mind has to follow. I needed to do some inventory of my mindsets about learning and teaching because I cannot bring the same attitude and characteristics of the face-to-face classroom teaching to online learning because they are different platforms. But we have to think, I have to think about the aspects of face-to-face teaching that may or may not work in online learning and vice versa. But, of course, it's the same core values of teaching. I just have to consider that strategies may be different. For example po, in motivation. In the classroom, students are entering a learning space, and so they pretty much have an idea that there are learning activities that must be done and learning outcomes that must be achieved. So as they walk towards the classroom, they are bringing themselves literally to the learning space. Okay, but in an online learning setup, some of our students, I think most of our students, have to create their own learning spaces at home, and sometimes they even have to fight for it. Why? Because there are chores to do. Or some of them are sharing gadgets and internet connection with siblings. So it takes more for them to get motivated and to come to online class. I have to work with them so they can make their learning space conducive. It could be as simple as me getting a good lighting, an external camera to attach to my laptop because we're doing sign language. If I do have good assistive tools, it's easy for them to see my hand movements. It can help them focus a little bit in online class because, say, I have bad light or my camera resolution is not good. That when my hands move, they cannot see what I'm signing or it's hard to follow. It reduces the focus of the deaf student big time. You know why? Because they cannot understand what you're saying. So they can be there, they're seated there, but they're not actually engaged. So, I have to research what are the best like assistive tools that I can get so that at least I can help them focus a little bit more. And okay, another thing that is a big deal for me when it comes to changing my mindset is to learn different educational technology tools, such as editing apps for videos. I got the most intuitive that I can think. I consider myself not so techy, and I think a lot of you can relate with that. And so my mind has to change and accept that technology is what will help me do my job for this season. Our next speaker is an inspiration in this area. And then the Office of Sir Beni, Center for Educational Technology, is doing such a good job in training faculty members in our learning management system. They are my ally because people like me need allies to do our job well. But of course, me, myself, and I have a responsibility to pursue learning technological tools as now part of my job. For me to do that, my mind has to change that, technology is for me, not against me. Okay? Okay, all right. So, number two, minimum hustle, yet maximum impact. Okay, curriculum-wise, I try to look at my syllabus and then study it. And then choose the most important skills and knowledge that I wanted to learn. I have to strip down my activities to the minimum number that I am comfortable with. So, as a facilitator of learning, I negotiate with myself. Is this too little, too easy, or too much, too heavy? So I have to make sure that the least number of activities that I'm comfortable with will already target several learning outcomes. So my students and I get the maximum impact of each and every activity that we are going to do. And not only that, the design of the activities ideally, should also encourage self-directed or independent learning. Because we're not always with them. We cannot be helicopter teachers, unlike in the face-to-face classroom setup wherein we can easily say and correct, okay, can you adjust this? That's wrong, that's right. Right now, we are not with them. So I really take my time to think about the activities that will complement the course, setting it at the minimum number that I'm comfortable with, yet having the maximum student skills and self-directed learning. Recently, I heard about the term utagogy. Some of you may know it already. I have not fully read the research done, but I was intrigued by the definition. It says, utagogy is a much more holistic approach which teaches students how to learn and gain competency and skills they needed for their selected field. In simpler terms, utagogy is self-directed and transformative education. And actually, I make it a goal that I at least touch on that a little, like make self-directed learning, be aware about self-directed learning strategies and incorporate it in my activities. Okay. And then number 3 for me is meditative or reflective teaching. Okay. In the classroom, in the classroom, face-to-face setup, I seldom have a glimpse of how my students are in their homes or outside the school. I don't know how they are in their natural environment. But in the classroom, in the online platform that we use right now, it's a kind of way for me to set foot in their houses. Well, virtually, of course. But seeing their background, seeing their private narrative or their locality, as a reflective teacher, it helps me to, contextualize my lessons. It helps me because I want my lessons to have an impact, not just in the future, but also now. So uh, I like that I can use their locality as a way to get my lessons across. So, for example, in business communication class, okay, we were talking about nonverbal communication. So it's about expression and body movement or body language. Okay, by the way, in our business communication class, we were all dressed up from head to toe. We take selfies, our OOTD, and then we send it to our classroom group chat to check on each other because it is a business communication class. And the students were game for it. They're actually excited when we have synchronous classes, and they will ask me like the day before, "Ma'am, is tomorrow like business attire?" It's one way to motivate them. So anyway, okay, so while we're having this class, one of the students got a bit rattled. Actually, you could see the panic in his face because his toddler son entered the learning space to ask him to play. And so we were all watching this thing happening. But he politely gestured to the son that he cannot play because of class. So that simple encounter, that will not happen in a face-to-face classroom setup, right? But that simple encounter, we use it to talk about nonverbal communications. Like, if it happens while they're in a meeting or at work, what is the best response? Like, how can we apply nonverbal communications effectively when you are panicky and rattled inside? Well, among other things. So, there you go. These are I call them the 3 M's: mindset change, minimum hustle, maximum impact, and meditative or reflective teaching. But I just want to share, online classes for the deaf, especially at this time of the pandemic, is not just an academic exercise. It is also a lifeline. Because most of them are the only deaf in the family. Not everyone in their family can communicate in sign language. So our classes, our online classes, our synchronous classes, it's also a way for us to talk about many other things. We can talk about the pandemic, or we can talk about what's happening in the world. If you don't want to talk about that, we can talk about other ideas. So the online teaching is not just a learning space, but also a mental health space for both my students and I. We're both benefiting, in just being together and just, communicating, sharing ideas, talking about things. So, why teach the deaf? Let me tell you a short story to answer that. A few years back, I asked a deaf high school student, I said, "What do you want to become after you graduate?" And then he signed a cleaner or a janitor. Okay. I asked why. And then he signed because that's the usual job for the deaf. Okay. So now there is nothing wrong with being a cleaner if that is his real passion, But having to choose something because of the limitations placed by either the society or expectations placed by the self is actually heartbreaking. I think in itself, it is an issue. and it has to be dealt with. So I am here to be part of an institution that gives the deaf a fighting chance, to have a little freedom to choose or to see an alternative on the things that they can pursue. Um, so after a year of studying, I asked that student again. I said, what job are you preparing for, or what do you want to become after you graduate? And then he signed, I want to become a photographer. And that answer warmed my heart. That this institution is doing its job and it is doing it well. So that's the end of my sharing for today. I hope you guys learned from it. And I think you have time to, if you have questions, I think you have time to ask them after our last speaker.
And now, thank you po Miss Rochelle. And finally, for our third speaker who will share his expertise through his presentation entitled Inclusive Online Teaching Tips is Attorney Jude Latore. Attorney Jude is an experienced trial lawyer and a teacher. He has taught at several levels including high school, college, and graduate studies. Above everything else, he likes the challenge of being a special education teacher and a trainer mentor for online instruction. Currently, he serves as an academic administrator as the Human Resource Management Program Chair and continuously engages in volunteer work such as Trustee at Pangarap Foundation. Once again, let us all welcome Attorney Jude.
Good afternoon. Kumusta? Sandali lang, isi-share ko lang yung screen. Okay, here. Right, I'm only given like 15 minutes, so pabilisan ito. Bear with me, just think that we are having a conversation, although I would like it to be more of an exchange at a coffee shop. All right, so first, I am tasked to handle or just to share with you what I do in my class to make it inclusive. Hence, in 50 minutes, I'll try to focus on the 4 hacks that I use in my class. One of them is neurodiversity, the whole class approach, the synchronous session, which should not be a lecture, but rather I design it like an online talent show. The ones or not or like a talk show, which is interactive. And then the 4th one is how do I make accommodations for students who have special needs, in which I utilize the principles of UPD, which is Understanding by Design, and UDL, Universal Design for Learning. So let's start. Yung framework ko kasi dito, yung neurodiversity, it's fairly new kasi na-coin up ito way back in the 90s. Ang sabi dito, yung pagkakaintindi o pag-aaral o learning ng mga tao ay iba-iba. So kung yun man halimbawa ay sinasabing may special need, just consider that as a variety or part of the diversity. Tulad ng may iba-iba tayong heights, weights, color, preferences, or styles. Then in that case, it calls for what is called as acceptance. In certain repercussions or implications, it means that, 1, we have to look at the strengths. Titingnan natin, saan ba siya malakas? Saan ba niya nakukuha? At sa anong bagay ba niya pwedeng ipakita na natutunan niya yung lesson? At dahil doon, then our mission, in fact, it's a challenge, is how to increase the human potential. Minsan, ang gagawin natin, hindi natin ibibigay ang the same type rather of teaching, but rather we can modify it in a way wherein we are able to spot how he is able to learn and how he is able to show that. Hence, another implication is that we have to teach our students that there are ways about making the brain grow and make themselves far better. Kasi may mga strategies naman doon tulad ng growth mindset, that is through hard work and strategies, then you can learn more. And neuroplasticity, which means that the brain is capable of learning whatever is the age. And likewise, in the case of the brain forest metaphor, wherein we try to identify what is set within the milieu wherein he can be able to grasp the concept and then be able to show it in a way which is not regularly depicted by other students. So that's concept number one, which is neurodiversity. It really calls for acceptance. The next one is the whole class approach. Ang gagawin ko dito, I will design the class for a range of learners. In my class, it's sometimes a combination of dean's listers, what is called as those in the middle range, and those who need to be pushed further. At minsan, meron akong those with special learning needs. For this term, ang nakita ko lang doon is somebody who told me that he is legally blind and therefore I have to make accommodations in the delivery of the material. This term, mga tatlo yata ang nagsabi sa akin, "Sir, I'm having depression." Oh, so in that case, I'm going to share with you a technique which I use. And then yesterday, there was a student who said, "Sir, I'm not able to submit my output on time kasi na-quarantine kami, yung family namin, and we'll be away for 10 days. Okay, so I'll share with you how it is done. But first, how do I design my class for a diverse group? Okay, iba-ibang klaseng level. So here, whole class. Yung syllabus natin is good for 14 weeks. Pero mahirap yun. Ang ginawa ko, kinuha ko yung word na sabi ng co-faculty, distill. Okay? Kunin natin what we consider as the more important concepts and what we would like our students to continue to remember and to apply even after class. Or kahit na after they are already working, they can still remember those concepts. So ang ginawa ko dito, all right, within one term, from the 14 weeks, I just reduced that into 7. Pero ang 7 na yun, talagang may pacing, may style, at may strategy para kasama doon yung deepening the concept. And then I can touch the upper levels of Bloom's taxonomy, which includes critical thinking and then creation. So here, so ito yung schedule ko para may pacing. And then ang ginawa ko sa bawat module, there are 3 outputs. First one is exercise, practice yan. Titingnan ko kung nakuha yung concept, formative lang yan, sina-check ko yung understanding, tapos pinapa-research ko sila, pinapasagot, pero hindi yung sagot na objective, with all due respect. Kasi madaling makuha yun, including doon sa Google. So ang ginawa ko, go to this website, and then, do you agree with the statement? How does that confirm or conform or differ from the concept or topic that we studied in this module? Kasi at least mag-analyze sila doon at makikita mo how I was able to process. Yung second part naman, yung second output is the reflection. Formative pa rin ito kasi tinitingnan ko pa rin understanding. But dito, sinasama ko, can you restate the concept in your own words? Actually, I use what is called as the Feynman technique. Halimbawa, iniba ko. Itong topic natin on the 3 different taxpayers, CIE, compensation income earner, yung self-employed individual, and the third one is the mixed income earner. How would you explain that to somebody who is working as a fishbowl vendor? See? So, gagawa sila ng mga dialogues, tapos he will translate that into a language and a level na hindi naman dumbing down, but at the same time, maintindihan by somebody who does not have any background in taxation. In that case. Tapos, meron ako mga exercises doon wherein I let them identify or connect to themselves, which is really part of what I call as meaning making. Halimbawa, do you agree with what the drug cartel did to distribute part of the goods in a way wherein it is similar to the Robin Hood tactic? Do you agree with that? If you were, for instance, one of those who received from the drug lords, will you accept it? Why or why not in that case? Kasi doon, nakikita ko rin how they're able to connect the concepts into their daily existence. Kumbaga, meaning making. The last part is what I called as the integration. So doon talaga, ito na sinasabi ni summative assessment. Kasi sinecheck ko na talaga, naintindihan mo na. Basically, it's the same as the exercise. Pero ang gagawin ko dito sa integration, ibahin ko situation. Not the same situation, same coverage, same topics. However, ang sinecheck ko dito, pattern recognition. Kasi kung makita nila, ito pala yung topic, however, iniba ko yung scenario, then mache-check ko kung naintindihan niya yung concept. Tapos mayroon akong binago ngayon for this term, meron yung creativity, they will have to come up with a solution. Halimbawa, as if you're a blogger, kasi that's a form of income generation na gagamit mo lang technology and what you already have as an ability or talent, then make at most a 5-minute video, upload that on discussion, share that with your classmates, and your classmates will have to comment on that. So in that case, I was able to foster collaboration, social learning, at the same time, they get to know their classmates kahit online kami lahat. All right, so here. Next one, whole class pa rin tayo. Minsan, I have students who need to have what is called as monitoring. Hence, dito, linalagay ko pa rin, this is our schedule for this module. Usually, one module is for 2 weeks. Tapos, those 3 output that they have to submit, I paste them. It's for 5 days ang difference. But usually, hindi ko man sinacheck agad. So, there's still an allowance of 2 days. To make it inclusive, kasi merong iba dyan, may mga sinasabing sense of consensusness, merong iba naman, kailangan mo pa i-support or push. So, chinecheck ko doon sa mga nag-submit na, tapos meron akong whole grading system, nakikita ko ang pattern. Yung medyo nahuhuli, tapos yung meron naman iba na way ahead. So, those who are behind, then what do I do? After the synchronous session, Mr. O, can I talk to you? Can I talk to you after class? And we have a one-on-one. And I try to find out, why were you not able to submit? What can you do? Okay, but take note, although my extension, I still have what you call as accountability. Halimbawa, bakit ka late? Do you think it will be fair kung tatanggapin ko? Samantala yung mga classmates mo nakapag-submit. What do you think can be done? Okay. So actually, meron na akong strategy doon, which is, all right, accept even if it's late, but make them accountable by sa kanila manggagaling, sir, baka may deduction. Okay, that's fair enough. Actually, that was my intention, but I want them to have ownership. At the same time, ang ginawa ko na lang, linid ko na lang sila doon. Kasi na-meet pa rin naman yung sinasabing learning goal. Okay, so then take note that there's a combination of synchronous and asynchronous session. Yung asynchronous, yung mga output yan. Plus, I give them options. You want to work in groups, okay, not more than 4, but you can also submit as a solo outputs. To make sure that yung mga group output talagang they will do it, merong at the end, meron sinasabing project management report. Who did this? Who did that? Okay, anong timeline? Tapos, who checked on what or who checked on whom? And what will happen is that sometimes to verify, okay, give me proof that there was really collaboration. So they will submit, for instance, photos of their group messaging or di kaya doon sa Excel file, nakikita ko ano mga contribution. It's a way of monitoring. Right? So I'll just give you examples of how I make it graphic. Kasi remember, we have all kinds of learners. Yung iba, they don't like text. Yung iba, they like to have more materials. So using UDL, Universal Design for Learning, then I make sure that I tackle all modalities. These are examples of the materials which I upload. Okay, this one, to make it more personal, I have my picture. That's is in the introduction. Like, hello, welcome to Module 2. These are our topics. And this is an example of a teacher-made material which I use. Medyo matrabaho siya, but I enjoy it kasi una, I think of myself as a graphic designer. See, design skill yun. And then this is another example of a question which I pose during the synchronous class. Dito, okay, halimbawa, we had our discussion on the 3 forms of income, which is cash, property, and services. However, ang diniscuss ko, different ang situation. Ngayon, gagawin ko real life. Tapos ibahin. Halimbawa dito. What you see in the picture? All right. In 5 minutes, what I want you to do is answer in survey or pieces. What are the 3 forms of income which is company can pay if you are the model? Okay, so usually papasok nun, cash by them. How about property? Sir, Orn. O yung coffin. Okay. How about services? Sir, mortuary services. Sabi ko, sama mo ng makeup. Okay? Kasi pwede ka mag-makeup. Mukhang patay, magiging buhay in that case. So here, they have fun because I make sure that it is reality-based. But at the same time, it makes them think because it's different from the example I gave when I did the lecture, or it's different from that in the slide deck. Here's another type of lesson that I do, and this is an example of a game wherein they are into groups, and then I give them like 10 minutes. Come on, try to answer. Try to classify these kinds of persons. Dito, they will do digital hunt. They will try to find out what is this, and they will try to identify resident alien, non-resident alien, etc. Pero if you notice, meron siyang sinasabing mga trick question like Nobida, Nobi. That's from Doraemon. So not applicable yan. Okay, number three is my favorite food in Singapore, but they have to check that. So in a way, they're using Google, but at the same time, they're trying to analyze where does that fall. And at the same time, my game siya, okay, points. The group with the highest point will get additional bonus points. All right, so in that case, I'm able to tackle or cater to all kinds of learners. Next, how do I accommodate all kinds by way of the synchronous learning? This is what I did, all right? Instead of just a lecture, no, I design it like it is a show. So welcome to The Tonight Show with Jude Latore. Okay, so ang gagawin ko dito, kasi may mga attention span, remember, 10 to 15 minutes, I break the 1.5 hours into segments. So itong ginagawa kong framework. First, my prayer and welcome. Chat back question of the week. So dito, all right, this is the question for the week. For instance, based on our picture last week, who should be considered as the model of the class? Why? It's fun. It's fun in that case. Tapos, ngayon may theme kami. For instance, our class photo for this week will be laughing. Dapat laughing ang picture mo kasi una, I want you to think of yourself as commercial models. All right, then 6:11 to 6:20 segment, I will upload the PowerPoint, and then I will tell them, okay, read first slides 1 to 7, 5 minutes. Answer the question. And then afterwards, what I do is either discuss or I change it. Now, take note, meron siya dito, cameras on, cameras off. Para may variety. Tapos, I segment that into 10 to 15 minutes interval para hindi mabobore. Tapos dito, to make sure that they know what it is or they know that I'm checking, then we have what is called as the cold calling. Nakakasagot na ba sila? Of course. Kasi before that, meron na silang sinagot dun sa either quiz or survey, and that serves likewise as a documentation of their participation. Okay, so meron kaming pakulo dito, icebreaker, last week's photo, and who I considered as the winner, as the best posing. And then on the second half of the online class, I now have what is called as the second topic. And then we finally end that with what is called as the group work. So either individual work or group work or sinasabing digital hunt, yung scavenger hunt, wherein I let them locate real-life examples of the topic and they will try to discuss that and connect that to the lesson. So in a way, I'm able to capture the attention span of Generation Z, which is they're into visuals. They have what is called as this restlessness, which I will consider as an advantage, but I design the delivery based on that strength. Because that's one of my takeaways from neurodiversity. Okay, so these are some of my guidelines. In how to conduct the online class, but I just make it like it's an online show of the professor. Very interactive. Do I tell them that the attendance is not required? No. However, so that they will be encouraged to attend, I tell them those who have been active, those who have been consistently attending, you get to have bonus points at the end of the term. Okay, so may additional. So in that case, they are encouraged to attend. Okay, so next. The last part is how do I make accommodations? Because it could be the way I design it does not fit into that particular learning modality of the student. Remember neurodiversity? So instead of looking at it as a deficit, what I do is I have what is called as a workaround or a workthrough. And how do I make accommodations? Because remember in accommodations, we do not lessen the rigor, okay? And we do not shorten it just because we want that student to pass. No, we maintain the rigor, only that we have to find ways wherein we will be able to deliver and accomplish the learning goal, but at the same time, we understand the strength of the particular student. I use two frameworks. One of them is understanding by design, and the other one is universal design for learning. All right, so I'll try to make it simple. Understanding by design, karamihan sa atin siguro na encounter na yan by way of the OPE, the outcomes-based education. So dito sa una titingnan ko, anong intended result? Anong dapat na outcome ang gusto ko makita sa mga estudyante? So begin with the end in mind. So example, by the end of this module, they should be able to compute the correct income tax to be paid by the 3 different kinds of learner. So that's one. Number 2, okay, paano ko ma-verify na naintindihan nila? Kasi ayoko naman ng plain recitation lang or plain objective answers. No. So ayan, problem sets. Sa problem sets, i-mimix ko dyan, and then they should be able to come up with the correct prescription of what should be the correct amount of income tax to be paid. Okay, number 3, in understanding by design, then how do I make sure that the lessons will be delivered effectively? Okay, so doon ako papasok. Siguro ang strategy ko dito, combination. My lecture, my use of audiovisual materials or clips, tapos I'll reinforce it or complement it by way of the synchronous class, and then may practice kami. At the same time, meron akong mga models para it will serve as a guide, but at the same time, they will be able to show pattern recognition. And that is how I utilize understanding by design in creating accommodations. Pero sinasama ko doon, kumbaga, tinitimpla ko siya with the use of what is called as universal design for learning. Gusto ko ang universal design for learning kasi very simple siya. But at the same time, it's very versatile. Kasi ang dami mong options ang pwedeng makombine. Pero nagbibigay siya ng framework. Halimbawa, okay, sa Universal Design for Learning, yung UDL, una, ang representation. Ang gagawin ko, how do I present the lesson? Ay, lecture lang or text lang. Ay, no. Parang that is not welcoming to others who prefer, for instance, they like to see moving images. Hence, I still have to look for materials on YouTube which will complement. At kung wala akong makita, I have to resort to making my own video or making my own storyline. All right, so that's on the part of the teacher. On the part of the student, yung mode niya, yung expression. So, how can he show that he understood it? Minsan, yung usual resort natin is the pen and paper. All right? But may limitations doon kasi yung iba, it's not their strength. Hence, can you show me that you understand it? All right? So, doon ko ginamit yung Feynman technique. Yung nasabi ko kanina, like, how will you tell a student who is 10 years old about this topic? All right? So, ang gagawin niya, he will say that in his own language na maintindihan ng grade school student. Or di kaya, ang gagawin niya, gagawa siya ng parang infographics. And then, to test sa akin, ang gagawin ko, alright, can you explain to me? One-on-one tayo. See? Then, instead of the usual pen and paper, he has other modes wherein he can show that he has learned the lesson. Okay? So, example lang ito. Dito, what is it that I want my student to learn? Example lang ito. Okay, suppose you have to tell me after I have lectured on how to do a trip for 5 persons, good for 5 days. So how would you do it? So that's the end result. Diba sa UBD, understanding by design, what's the end result? Okay, dito. Secondly, paano mo mapapakita sa akin na naintindihan mo yan? Then, you have to come up with a plan. Wherein, sasabihin mo, ang gagawin mo, magkano ang abutin, at saan mo siya itutour, and those things. Then, thirdly, paano ko iplaplano ang learning sessions na can accommodate all kinds. So, gagamitin ko yung Universal Design for Learning. See? So, I'm not limited to text. I'm not limited merely to pen and paper, but I have other modalities. Hence, this could be what is called some examples. So, in representation, yung teacher part yun. Then, although may video showing ako, may travel book and brochures, may lecture ako, may gagamit ako ng digital apps. May isang digital app ang ginagamit doon for that particular lesson, and it's Rome to Rio. Kasi trip planning yun eh. Tapos makakahanap ka ng how much is the price, how long is the trip, and those things. Then blogs and websites likewise. Then, on the part of the student, paano mapapakita na naintindihan mo yan? Oh, then you can present the output by way of an infographic, an audiovisual presentation, or you can present that text-based client proposal, or you can have a simulated blog or journal, or another method. And then, paano ko mapapakita engagement? Kasi sa engagement, titingnan ko from the perspective of his interest. Okay? Or strength. So usually, sabihin ko, all right, why would you do this? Sir, because I'm going to do it for my family once travel is now available. Iba naman, mahilig sa design or architecture or meeting new friends. So interest in culture and history. Iba naman, they already have blogs. So it's really another entry for them or skill building in that reason. Okay, so that's how I design accommodation. So kung hindi siya pwede sa pen and paper, then using understanding by design or universal design for learning, then in that case, I can still accomplish the learning goal, but at the same time, I use neurodiversity to find out what is he good at. So rather than seeing it as a deficit, no. Work on his strength. And in the best way that he still enjoys coming up with the lesson. Okay, And before anything else, this is how I further design the lessons. I make sure that I cover sense and meaning. Yung sense, the student is able to learn something new. That's the educational part. And in the meaning, he gets to connect that to his life and see how it can possibly impact or influence him. And in a way, it makes the lesson personal. And because they have what is called as a connection, they tend to appreciate the material and they will remember it because there is now an emotional attachment. Okay, so I hope I was able to share with you and you learned something from my presentation wherein I touched on neurodiversity, the whole class approach, and likewise, I use the synchronous class as similar to a nighttime talk show of James Corden. Punin na rin lang, kung gusto niyo Boy Abunda, sige. Kasi una, punin man siya ma-design eh. And the last part is, what's my technique for accommodating students with other needs? Or they're not the usual types of wiring wherein the traditional or regular options will not be effective for them. Thank you very much. Okay, kape tayo.
There, thank you very much, Sir Benny, Miss Rochelle, and Atty. Jude for your presentations. Sobrang solid, ang dami naming natutunan. Now, let me invite our facilitators for this afternoon. Mr. Roger Delcano, the Applications Unit Assistant Head, and Mr. Jen Adriano, Content Development Head of the Center for Educational Technology, together with our guest speakers, Sir Benny, Ms. Rochelle, and Atty. Jude, as well as the Director of the Center for Educational Technology, Mr. Rogelio de la Cruz, for the discussion portion.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sir Benny, Ma'am Rochelle, and Atty. Jude. Now that we have heard their brief presentations, we will now advance to the open forum portion to learn from our guests what they have experienced personally. As always, we hear from all talk shows, the views expressed here are those of the panelists and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of and then the name of the company. So, however, we are here to provide you with some practical choices, even though our viewpoints can differ. We value versatility and open-mindedness. We also implore you to be pragmatic and contextually conscious. So if something isn't working for you, you can put it temporarily on the back burner, but of course, you're always welcome to improve them. So let's get started. Let's merge our ideas, principles, and techniques and concentrate on what will help us. Sir Jen, do you have your first question ready? May mga question na ba tayo dyan?
Sir Roger, magandang hapon. Magandang hapon po sa mga umattend, sa mga audience natin. Una, singit ko lang muna. Maraming salamat kay Miss Jaya tsaka kay Miss Nikki sa pag-interpret. Okay, Attorney Jude. Sir Roger, may tatanong lang ako. Actually, simulan ko na agad kasi since hindi naman talaga tayo, medyo kwentuhan lang naman talaga yung setup natin, no?
Okay.
So, may kikwento lang muna ako muna. So, during the first few months ng implementation, natutulog ako kasi syempre, sa EdTech parang napansin namin na birang yun. So, natutulog ako, tapos nag-ring yung telepono ko. So, itong babaeng tumatawa na to, si Rochelle tumawag sa akin. Sabi niya, Jen, bigmengin naman ako ng idea kasi sa SDS of course kailangan natin ng videos, no? Pero kasi may mga scholars tayo or may mga students tayo na umuwi ng probinsya tapos hindi sila maka-access ng net. So nagbiro ako tapos ginawa ni Rochelle. Anyway, sige Rochelle, pakwento naman ng paano mo ako inistorbo.
I was really desperate, diba? Desperate circumstance with the desperate measures na talaga. Because it's the first few weeks wherein the students are back in the provinces. So they don't know what to expect about their internet connection. So, and I think we're ending that term. Diba? We're trying to end that term. Because that was April yata last year, I think. April, May, or something like that. And I was desperate because the student is really good, pero wala talaga siyang connection. As in, there's no connection possible. So we texted. So yung discussion namin, tsaka yung worksheet namin, nag-text kami. Thank you naman kay Jen kasi parang at least na-comply ng student yung kailangan niya. Although, thank you din dun sa student kasi patient enough siya mag-answer din. So I know for the deaf, we really need video conferences and all of those things. But, if that was the first few weeks, so we don't know yet what to expect, right? So we just, if there's a will, if there's a way. Sorry naman, Jen, nagising ka ba?
Joke lang. Ano yun actually, no need to thank me. Actually, nagbibiro lang ako noon, tapos ginawa mo. Tapos nung kinuwento mo sa akin na nag-work, sana hindi na lang ako nag-joke para idea ko talaga siya. Okay, salamat sa kwento. Salamat sa kwento, Rochelle. Sir Roger, meron ka bang question dyan?
Oh yes. Oo, may natanggap ako dito eh. Address to kay Sir Tugel. Kasi sir, pakwento naman yung mga natin, mga first few months na lockdown. Ano ba yung mga challenges natin noon? Tsaka paano ba natin na overcome yung mga challenges na yun, sir?
Ayun, sige. Thank you, Sir Roger. Pero bago lahat, congratulate ko yung organizer sa kayong tatlong speaker natin. Ako, pakiramdam ko para akong isang proud na tatay at nakikita yung mga anak na nagagalingan, no? Parang gano'n. Hindi naman ako mas matanda sa kanila. Yun lang naman feeling ko. Pero anyways, yung tanong ni Sir Roger, no, yung yung mga naging struggles natin nung una. Ang siguro edge ng Benilde time na yun. May head start po kami, no, for the information of everyone kasi ilang years ago na gumagawa na ho kami ng online learning policy, no? Para preparado ka sa pag kayo nawalan ng pasok pag may bagyo, yung mga gano'n, no? Pero yung policy po namin, hindi namin in-expect na isang taon mawalan ng pasok. Hindi ho kami handa doon sa mga bagay na yun. Pero yung pag-train ng teachers how to digitize, handa po kami. Pero yung magnitude ng problema, yung pagiging massive niya, doon kami hindi handa, na bigla ho kami lahat. Yung binabanggit na problema ni Jen kanina, dati iniisip lang namin yung technology, yung teacher hindi ready. Ngayon pati ang tawag ho dun sa issue na yun affordances, no? Affordances sa technology na available, connection, affordances sa connection, affordances sa gadget. Kung maalala niyo yung mga nakasama kong magbigay sa SpEd training, hindi lang ho gadget at yung iba kuryente, no, habang nagbibigay ho kami biglang nag-text na lang sila dahil brown out po dito sa amin. So yung ganun magnitude ho yung problema natin on a national scale, no? So nung tumambad sa amin ito nalula din po kami, no, pero hindi naman po kami umatras. Kaya lang we have to regroup dahil yun, nung na-realize namin hindi ito panandalian at sobrang massive nung problema, no. So kaya talagang ang ginawa po ng administration talagang okay, all hands on deck at ito yung goal natin, ang pinakaunang goal natin maitawid So kaya talagang nag-focus kami sa teacher training, pag-digitize ng tag nito ng mga contents, tapos yung mga estudyante inalalayan din yung sa kanilang mga issues of connection and everything, no? So hindi po siya perpekto pero naitawid naman, no? Yun, ewan ko kung may maidadagdag pa yung ating mga speakers.
Okay, sir. So marami pala tayong pinagdaanan, especially yung mga affordances na problema nga, no, katulad nung nabanggit nyo. At ang national scale to, hindi lang to problema ni Benilde. Lahat nakaramdam nito. Pero sir, gusto ko yung nasabi nyo, yung paano tayo naghanda, like nag-train tayo ng mga faculty natin, bago na ipalabas yun, maraming hirap ang nangyari doon, di ba
Yes,
sir?
oo.
Kung maaalala nyo. Tapos, gusto ko rin sir yung sinabi nyo yung aside from training the faculty, we also digitize our content. At higit sa lahat, yung alalay natin sa student. So, thank you dun sir at pinaalala nyo yun sa amin. So siguro, yan din ang pwedeng i-apply ng ibang schools, no? Sa tatlong bagay na yan. Training sa faculty, tapos ma-digitize yung content, and of course, yung support to the students. So Sir Jan, may question ka na ba dyan?
Sir, may idadagdag lang ako sa sinabi ni Sir Tugel.
Okay.
Before pa tayo mag-Big Sky, naalala ko lagi niya sinasabi, small community of practice. Ulit-ulit yun, small community of practice. Yun yung nag-save actually sa Benilde. Para sa akin lang. Kasi, for example, si Rochelle, masyado siyang in demand sa school, sa SDEAS, ganyan. Sa NATSAI ng time na yun. So, gusto natin siya kunin as member ng EdTech, pero tinuturuan na lang natin siya kasi mas importante definitely ang school. So, naka-build tayo ng community of practice. And I think, yun, katulad ng sinabi ni Sir Tugel, isa yan sa mga nagsalba or isa yun sa mga naging moves natin, yung slowly training people nung nakapaghanda tayo kahit paano. Anyway, ganito sir, may question naman ako kay Attorney Jude.
Okay.
Kasi kung hindi niyo po alam, no, si Attorney Jude ay talagang advocate yan ng inclusive education. Actually, pwede nga gawing poster boy yan ng inclusive education ng Benilde. So, Attorney Jude, kwento naman konti yung experience handling students with specific needs during online class. I remember nabanggit mo yung may side legally blind, kung tama ba yung pagkarinig ko.
Legally blind is term. Ang lang naman kasi una, yung first day, sinasabi ka, bakit nakikita ko noo? Parang yung pala kasi kailangan siya lumapit sa screen para mabasa. So, putya. I'm sorry. So, nag-email ako. I'm sorry. Hindi ko alam, ha? So, was there anything that you need? Sabi niya, sir, dun sa synchronous class, pwede ako mabigyan nyo na advanced slide. Kasi ang slides ko sa synchronous class, iba dun sa slides na ina-upload ko sa regular. Kasi una, dapat magkaiba sila dahil they should complement each other. Tapos, may lalagay ako na twist. So, 15 minutes before the synchronous class, ina-upload ko na sa kanya yan. Tapos, ang isa naman, 42 ang estudyante ngayon sa business taxation, 3 ang not doing well. Ganun. So, I have to talk to them, ano nangyayari? One-on-one? Ganun. Pero hindi accusatory, ha? Rather, yung tipong, ano nangyayari? Tapos, pag sabihin nila sa akin, ano sa tingin mo pwedeng gawin? Alright? Kung late yan, anong pwedeng isipin na katangkap-tanggap? Kasi iba nagsabit na Yung parang, actually, gusto kong sabihin na, meron ng reaction yan. Pero ayoko manggaling sa akin. Gusto ko manggaling sa kanila para, in a way, yung voluntary yun, kusang loob, at the same time, ownership. Ganun. Sa ngayon kasi, ang karamihan ng mga na-encounter ko na special conditions, yung depression, anxiety. Wala ako na student with autism tulad ng dati, or student with ADHD. So far, wala ako for the past 3 terms na online tayo. Yun ang karamihan. So ang ginagawa ko dyan, extended na lang muna. Pero at the same time, I'm trying to find out, accountability, nga tipo. Tapos, isa pa itong nakuha ko, kontrata, kasi di ba lawyer ako. Now, gagawin mo conditional, sabi ko. Pero dapat magpakitang gilas ka. Kung pagbibigyan kita, isabit na, tanggap yung kahit late, anong pwede mong ipakita sa akin? Kumbaga, exchange of values. Sir, in the next modules, I'll really do well. See? Sige. Pag ma-observe mo yan, then at the end, I will accept yung mga late mo, pero may deduction. So, may accountability siya. Fair pa rin dun sa mga nag-save on time.
Ayos yun Maganda yun
Kontrata. Nakuha ko yan sa contract.
Kontrata.
Attorney Jude,
Accommodation,
nakalimutan ko, sabi mo pala kape tayo. So, kape tayo.
Kaso na, ayoko. Hindi ka makakatulog mamayang gabi.
So nakuha ko, Attorney Jude, is na-empower mo yung mga students natin.
Actually, intention ko yon, pero ayokong magaling sa akin. Kumbaga, ililid ko lang.
Yes,
Ano sa tingin mo? Pero ang tone doon, yung coaching. Adult pa rin ako, pero yung tipong approachable na, oy, you have to be responsible for this. Yes.
Salamat sa insight, Attorney Jude, sa pag-share ng experience. Kay ano naman tayo ulit, kay Sir Roger, meron ba tayong
meron ako ritong question. Kasi sa EdTech kasi, for the information of everyone, meron po kaming office noon, ang tawag doon, EdTech, yung Educational Technology Office. Siya po yung responsible sa pag-training sa mga faculty, tsaka kung pag-coach sa kanila, at tsaka kung may mga problema sila, pinipersonal namin silang tinutulungan. At si Sir Beni, meron siyang maraming experience dito during pandemic, kung paano niya tinulungan, kinoach yung mga faculty namin. So, pakinggan natin si Sir Beni. Sir Beni, share mo naman yung experiences mo.
Hello. Oo. Ako normally ang okay lang aking audio.
Yes.
Okay lang. Okay. Kasi medyo choppy ako ngayon eh. So anyway, sa akin, normally pinaka-barometer ko, gauge ko, kung magtuturo man ako o magko-coach man ako, tinatanong ko muna, marunong ka mag-Facebook?
Oops.
Nako. Nawala.
Marunong mag-Facebook.
Pag sinabi ko, go tayo, go.
Okay.
Yeah. Pero may mga iba. Ayan, okay na? Yan.
Sige,
Your
go.
internet connection is
unstable.
I-off mo muna yung video siguro para kahit audio lang. Medyo choppy.
That's the challenging part. Okay, maybe I will have to turn off my audio, no? My video. Oh,
sige.
Yan po yung technique na ginagawa natin.
Okay. Para at least ma-save yung bandwidth.
Yeah.
Iyon, wala pa.
Pero kung na yung bandwidth, puputulin ko na lang video. Pero tulog. Yung masadyante natin ko minsan. Anyway, so as I said earlier, kadalasan
yun talaga medyo may problema.
Ang next niyan, sir, putulin mo yung audio mo. Hindi pala pwede yan, Hindi pala pwede yun.
Twitter ko na.
So, siguro, balikan na lang natin uli si Sir Beni.
Balikan natin si Sir Beni.
Oo. Mag-question na lang tayo, magtanong na lang tayo uli sa iba.
Sige, Sir Roger, ibabato ko to sa lahat ng speakers natin. Actually, kung meron din pong gustong mag-share ng experiences nila or ideas nila from the audience, pwede naman po let us know also. Ito itatanong ko po regarding the use of technology in education, are there any particular apps or technologies? Hold on. Particular apps or technologies you feel excited about and you think will be useful? Particular technologies or apps that you feel excited about and you think will be useful. Kahit sino po sa inyo. Maganda kasi iba-iba tayo ng konteksto eh. So may from training, meron from SDEAS, Attorney Jude, tapos si Sir Tudge, sa EdTech, ganyan. So sige lang po, if you have any insights regarding that.
Meron, okay. Pwede ako sabagot?
Sige sir, sige po, Attorney.
For education, libre yun. Tapos, pwede makagawa ang estudyante ng mga infographics o kaya video na akma kasi yan sa Generation Z eh. Yung mga ganun. Libre siya, maganda na. So, he doesn't need to be having problems with form, but rather yung substance o content. So, in that case, ang tinignan ko lang yung substance, magkano yung laman. Tapos, ang tinanong ko na, na-meet na ba natin ang learning goal? Yun ang bottom line eh. Adobe for Education. Spark yun. Libre yun.
Ako, ako, ako naman, aside from being an administrator, ako yung nagtuturo din. No? So, at yun, alam to nila Sir Roger, nung una talaga nakatuto kami sa admin, no? Pero nung nag-start ulit ako magturo, syempre, pati ako mag-recalibrate ng aking mga content. No? Unang-una yan, yung mga video lectures. So, ang isa sa mga kinagiliwang kong app ngayon yung Doodly, no? Yung para kang nagcho-chalk talk pero nag-video ka kasi sa kaalaman ng iba ako graphically challenged, no? Pero bilib na bilib ako sa mga taong yung mga teacher ko na magaling mag-chalk talk. Pero dahil sa Doodly, parang ang galing-galing ko na rin mag-chalk talk, no? Magaling ako magkwento pero hindi ako magaling mag-drawing. Pero dahil dun sa Doodly, parang magaling ako mag-draw. So, nakakagawa na ako ng mga mas engaging ng mga video lectures dahil dun. Yun lang po.
Sir, may libre bang account yon yung sa Doodly?
May mga trial account siya pero naghahanap pa ako ng alternative na mura siya. Pero baka merong mga nakakaalam, paki-type nyo lang po dun sa sa chat box. Pero sa ngayon hinanap. Pero may trial period siya. At medyo mahaba-haba naman. Ang siguro okay yun para sa mga may graphic talent na talaga dahil gagawa ka ng assets mo. Pero yun nga, sa kagaya kong graphically challenged, parang konti lang yung mga assets na pwede mong magamit. Yun yung catch niya, no? Yun lang.
Ayun sir, naka-sale daw si Doodly ngayon, 86 USD one-time payment.
Pwede na. Pwede na rin, no? Pwede na rin.
Sige, si Miss Rochelle naman. Sorry Rochelle. Acknowledge ko muna pala, hindi ko kasi nabanggit kung sino nagtanong. Yung question na yan ay galing kay Miss Eileen Cortez. Sige, Miss Rochelle, if ever you have ano.
Hi, Miss Eileen. Well, for me, since I'm still really learning a lot of educational tools, I need something that is video-oriented pero mababa yung bandwidth. Kasi most of our students are scholars. So I'm studying Flipgrid. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's like an exchange of videos. Can be real time, it can be saved and reviewed. Kaya lang meron siyang, I'm still reading what do you call that, Sir Jude? You need permission kasi at a certain age, you need permission from parents before you can have the consent. Yeah. So I'm still studying before I launch it, but I'm preparing for it sana for the next term. So we'll see how it will go.
Okay, so si Attorney Jude, ang sabi niya, Adobe Spark. Si Sir Tujal naman, sabi niya, yung Doodly, okay daw yon. Tapos si Ma'am Rochelle naman, Flipgrid. Hindi natin mabalikan kung okay na si Sir Beni. So ako naman, pwede rin akong mag-share. Flipgrid. Edpuzzle. Try nyo po yun, Edpuzzle. Yung ginagawa po nung Edpuzzle na yon, halimbawa, gumawa ka ng video, tapos you want your video to be interactive, yun pwede mong gawin doon sa Edpuzzle. Magpa-pop up siya ng mga questions, tapos sasabihin niya kung tama o mali, depende na yun sa mo. May score kasi yun sa dulo. So, para siyang assessment, para siyang formative assessment. Sa dulo nun, may score siya. Ang advantage nun, magiging attentive yung yung estudyante mo kasi may magpa-pop up na questions doon . So try nyo po yun. Edpuzzle.
May i-share lang po ako galing sa kapatid ko. Sa kapatid ko to natutunan When to meet. Yung number 2, when to meet. So ano yung purpose ni when to meet? Kung kaming anim po ngayon na nakikita ko sa screen ay magsiset ng isang meeting, yun po yung gagamitin namin. Tapos mag-highlight lang kayo kung kailan kayo free. Tapos yun na siya. No need for a long email thread para makapaghanap tayo ng isang common time. Yun kasi yung nagiging challenge sa amin recently. So yan. When to meet yan. Whentomeet.com. Nasa chat po. Okay. Sige.
So yan. So thank you, Sir Jen, doon sa when to meet. Pang kalendaryo ito no?
Sir, tama.
Okay. So now, let's proceed to our next question. Medyo para sa lahat ito, address para sa lahat, even kay Sir Tujel na nagtuturo din. Kasi di ba, yung sa pinagdaanan natin, ng pandemic na isang taon na, di ba? Isa sa mga challenges natin yung passive learning, yung mga passive learners. So ang question ngayon, ano yung maipapayo natin sa mga co-teachers natin para ma-enhance natin yung active learning? So we all know that there's no one-size-fits-all strategy, but what worked with you that you are willing to share with us, so please share with us. So siguro mag-umpisa tayo kay sino bang gustong umpisa nito ng mga things that you could make your learning active. Katulad po nung yung Ed puzzle, isa po yung paraan. Meron pa po ba kayong ibang naiisip bukod pa po sa doon?
Sige, ako muna.
Sige sir. Sige sir.
Okay. Maraming aspects na kailangang i-breakdown para maging interactive ang isang klase, no? Pero of course, first dapat isaalang-alang mo yung instructional design na gagawin mo. Kung nasanay ang teacher dati na magle-lecture, after ng lecture get 1/4, no? Kasi simula elementary hanggang college ganun lang yung form of instruction, tas ganun din lang yung form of assessment simula elementary hanggang college hindi nagbabago yun. So for the longest time, tas hindi pa rin siya nagbabago kahit pre-pandemic, pero nung pandemic walang choice lahat no? Dahil una wala ka ng 1/4 ngayon di ba? So talagang napilit mabago yung mga teacher. So hindi lang siya lecture, no? So yung mga ganun, una babaguhin mo yung instructional design, no? From focusing too much on the content or the textbook na dapat mong sundin, dapat i-design mo siya in such a way na industry-based, no? Kagaya nung kay Sir Jude. Tapos ilalagay mo yung konsepto sa isang real-life context, no? Para maging engaging siya. Ngayon, syempre, that's one, no? Yung pinaka-instructional design. Gawin mo siyang problem-based, real-world scenario. Isa yon. Pero, syempre, designing that, conceptualizing that is one, pero delivering it in actuality is another. So, yung mga ginagawa ni Sir Jude at yung sinasabi ni Sir Roger na mga parang interactive tools, it goes handy yung mga ganon na paggagamit ka, magta-try out ka ng mga ganon. So learn how to experiment. No? So yung mga ganon, instructional design at yung mga tools na pwedeng mga makatulong. Pero mag-jump ako ulit dun sa sinabi ni Rochelle kanina. No? Aside from the topics or the skill sets that we teach in our subject, we have to be aware that right now we are in a pandemic. We are all struggling. And the online class is the initial or the only way by which our students come into contact with other human beings. Alam mo yun? So, bago mo i-prioritize yung topic mo, establish mo muna yung authentic human connection. So, kung hindi ka sanay as a teacher sa ganun, problema yon dahil hindi mo madideliver yung kahit na ganong kaganda yung design ng iyong instruction, wala kang basic knowledge how to connect to other human beings in an online environment. Yung malaking problema yon. So yon, yung interactivity will come, pero kapag ka nakita ng estudyante mo yung authenticity mo as a tao, as a human being, they will respond to you, they will resonate to you. So technology is the venue, pero at the end of the day, we're all humans, we're all struggling. Pag naramdaman nila to, they will trust you and they know that you will trust them. Yun, importante yun.
Okay. Thank you, sir. May dadagdag pa po ba si Ma'am Rochelle?
Yeah, a little bit lang siguro. For me, it depends kasi diba sa estudyante. So at the start of the term, I have like a mini survey of their likes and their dislikes and stuff like that, to get to know them a little better. And then, kasi from there, I like to contextualize kasi my lessons. So from there, from the likes and the dislikes, I would, I can plan a little bit, of the topics that they like and they don't like. Just for just for an example, we're doing comma fill class ngayon. It's Komunikasyon Akademikong Filipino. Just to give you a context, the deaf, they don't have, as a community, don't have much exposure to Filipino words. Because the gloss of sign language is usually in English. Okay, so how can I teach Filipino as an academic language if hindi lahat exposed sa Filipino words, even the common words? So I have to look for ways to make it engaging. For example, the word kaibigan at kaibigan. Okay, so I use certain experiences that they can write about, even if it's in English and then translate it to Tagalog or Filipino, even if it's Google Translate, just an exposure ng words ng kaibigan and kaibigan. Like it's a nice way of discussing Tagalog words in such a way that it is relatable to them. So, dyan lalabas yung mga words na ghosting, pa-fall, it's contextualizing it at their generation and at their level. And it's nice. It's a nice way of discussion when it comes to class because you would see them trying to really show their understanding of Tagalog. Pag hindi na nila kaya, English na nila. Pero they will express their experiences. And for me, the experience, for them to share the experience is more important. Kasi it's connection, just like what Sir Tujel said. It's really a connection thing when you're having online classes.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Rochelle.
Ay, mag-a-add lang ako sandali sa Roger. No, dahil
sige,
na-highlight yung connection. So kung nagtatanong yung mga tao about the apps that you are excited about, so i-categorize natin, importante po ngayon yung mga applications that helps you connect with other people. So yun yung unahin nating matutunang mga app. Kung meron kang app na matututunan. Isang category pa yan, marami po yan. Pero if you can engage your students in those apps at doon kayo magko-connect, okay po yun.
Attorney Jude, kayo po, meron ba kayong response to that?
Siguro sa akin yung modeling na ipakita mo na this is how it is done. Pero kasi ganito I have to show enthusiasm even if on certain days meron akong anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay? So ang technique ko dun, yung self-compassion by self-forgiveness. Kasi everyday meron akong to-do list. Pero minsan, bakit sa 10, 4 lang nagawa ko? Ewan. Kasi meron talagang time na kahit gusto mong gawin, ang hirap. Parang the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. But ang ginagawa ko, reframing. Hindi. Kahit siguro medyo I'm a little bit worried. No. Magpo-project ako. Kasi una, I think they need somebody na who can model na despite these problems, okay, we can still overcome. We can still make it through. I'm not being false, but rather I'm making a choice. Kasi I have a choice na to show that I'm sad or down. Pero no. Pakita ko na katang gawin. Kasi sa modeling at reframing, sinasabi mo sarili, no, this is an act of courage. Na kahit down ka, no. You have to do this for other people. Na kaya yan, laban lang. Reframing siya eh. Tapos self-forgiveness kasi hindi ko nagkagawa lahat ng to-do list. Ewan kung bakit. Pagod lang. Kasi mental health yan eh.
Yes, sir. Magandang point yan. Talaga, we have to forgive ourselves also at times, no? Kasi, may tayo sinisip na standards.
Every day, ko ginagawa yan.
Okay, sir, meron akong...
Okay.
Sir, may question lang ako very quickly.
Last
for
2 questions na lang tayo siguro.
Sir Beni, andyan na Sir Beni.
Last 2 questions. Ito, isang question ay para
Sir
kay
Beni,
Miss Rochelle. Para kay Miss Rochelle, tsaka siguro pwede rin sumagot si Miss Nikki. Sorry, kahit nag-interpret ka, I'm really sorry. But this is a good question. Okay. Ang question po, I am teaching research courses to senior high school with hearing and deaf students. So I am assuming magkasama po sila. No? Ito pong question to ay galing kay Sir Jordan Harabelo. So research courses, senior high school, deaf students and hearing students. I deliberately do not group the deaf with the hearing because of communication barrier among them. Ito po na yung question, no? Am I stepping on inclusivity? I am afraid that they would have problem during group discussions which would make them unproductive. I do not make the deaf feel different though. So, yan po. Is it a step or is Sir Jordan stepping on inclusivity dahil ginugroup niya yung hearing and non-hearing? Hearing and deaf sa course niya. Miss Rochelle?
Pasok na muna si Jaila, tapos si Diniki sasagot.
Diniki, pasensya na.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. This is so strange. That's how things are now, double body, no?
Sabay magandang mentor na sinabi ni Rochelle. Rochelle kanina.
Taka lang, tama ba to? Sir Jordan, tama? Tama yung pangalan, Sir Jordan.
Jordan Harabelo.
Harabelo. Sige. Meron po ako i-share sa inyo. In 2009, meron kaming isang deaf na graduate, magna cum laude, Ana Arce. So she's known by everyone. She always comes out on TV and she talks about her life, how her life changed na when she learned how to sign, ganun, no? Pero nung nagsimula kasi siya, she was a deaf person in a hearing class. And according to her, when she was mixed up with the hearing classmates, group work, sabi niya parang she felt left out. Sinama naman siya sa pag nag-submit, nandun yung pangalan niya sa project. Pero sabi nga niya, college na siya nito first year college. Sabi niya, pero ang feeling daw niya, I felt so useless. Wala naman akong contribution dyan So ba't ako kasama? Okay, so yes, sometimes no, it gets very, that's a concern. That's a concern that we have na, paano yun? Pag sinalo mo sila, deaf and hearing, baka naman masyado nang maiwan yung hearing. But sir, as a teacher, if you step in, you can actually make this a good experience, a learning experience in terms of inclusion. You can teach your students to be patient. You can teach your students to be accepting of different people na hindi nakakarinig. It might even be an opportunity for them to learn a new language, to learn how to sign. Diba? Kasi, in the end, yung deaf na yon, pag nakita niya yung effort ng mga hearing niya na classmates, trying to reach out to her or to him, tapos trying to parang include him or her, si deaf, tatapatan niya yung effort na yon. Tatapatan niya yung effort na yon na I will contribute. Nahihirapan sila, okay lang din na mahirapan ako to parang have middle ground. Diba? So, but do understand na nakakatakot. I'm sure as a teacher, nakakatakot para sa inyo na gawin yon. Pero, it will say a lot if you try to group those your deaf and hearing students together. It will say a lot to your hearing students and it will speak so much about how inclusive you are to your deaf students. So yun sir, I think try nyo lang kasi there are so many ways na they can interact pa rin with each other. Mga estudyante nga natin nakaka-interact with the K-pop idols, hindi rin naman sila nagkakaintindihan, di ba? Di ba, hindi naman tayo marunong ng Korean, pero effort na magbasa ng subtitles na kaliliit-liit sa cellphone. Ano to? Eto, kaklase mo na to. Di ba? So, kaya nila yan, sir. Napapangunahan lang kasi tayo ng takot minsan. Miss Rochelle, I'm sure ikaw, mas marami ka masasabi.
So, for me, tama naman po. We have to try. You know, what you can do is try in a smaller activity first. You know, and kasi we won't know po talaga. For me, it's really trial and error. At this point in time, everything is trial and error. But the important thing is your reflection after. and the development that you would want to do after your reflection. So try nyo po siguro isang deaf or dalawang deaf, na magkasama with the hearing group. Pwede po yan. So, you can vary the groupings para naman po may iba-iba ring experiences, and then you can ask the students later on, the deaf students and the hearing students, what do you think of the experience, and then you guys together can develop, the student and the teacher together, you can develop a system po of groupings, para po they're part of it. Kasi po parang we have to include the deaf also. What do they think about it? Para at least inclusive po talaga siya. So ako po, try nyo po.
So, ang sinasabi ni Ma'am Rochelle, try and try until you succeed. Parang ganun po yun, ano? But try it in smaller groups po muna, no? Small activities.
Miss Nikki naman, huwag tayong matakot, subukan din.
Ayan, okay.
Gagawin
So, huwag
niya
matakot. Okay. So, time check po. 6:01 na po. So, siguro, although we want to entertain more questions, pero since we have limited time, siguro, ano sa palagay mo, Surgeon?
Sir,
Tip na lang
siguro
tayo,
ako,
siguro?
isang mabilisan na lang na sasagot lahat, isang mabilisan na lang.
Okay. So, sige. Tungkol to sa tip, sa palagay mo, okay na lang yung tip natin? So, can you give us, so this is addressed to all our guest speakers. Can you share with us one tip that may be applicable to your colleagues, students, non-teaching associates, or even parents in relation to being more inclusive in an online learning? Sige po, yan po ang ating tip na lang that can be answered by all our guest speakers. Sino pong gustong mag-umpisa?
Si Attorney Jude.
Okay.
Ang isang natutunan ko kasi sa neurodiversity, dahil instead of seeing it as a deficit, see how you can do something about it. So, na-encounter ko yung term na work through or work around, which means that another way of doing it. Ganon? So, work through or work around. In the same way sa atin mga teachers, paano ko gagawin ito? Kasi nasanay tayo sa one lang eh. Because of that, work through or work around, what's another option? What's another way of doing this? In the process, I've been learning a lot. Now, may isang tanong lang dito ha. Yung iba-ibang form na sasabit ng estudyante, kasi di ba pwedeng infographic, pwedeng video. Sabi ko, anong pag-base ng grade mo doon? Rubrics. Pero sinisimple ko ng rubrics. Ano yung learning goal? Napakita ba ng estudyante na intindihan niya? Yun na lang. Hindi ko na iniisip yung format niya. Kung magandang format o pangit. Ang importante yung tinitingnan ko doon, naintindihan ba yung lesson, napakita ba niya naintindihan niya? Yun lang. So, yun ang nakita kong work through or work around. Ganyan. Ay, ginagamit ko na sa sarili ko yan. Halimbawa, how can I survive this day? I work through, work around. Maghanap ako ng solusyon.
Okay, Attorney Jude, thank you.
Salamat, Attorney. Sir Beni, you're back.
Okay na.
Okay na, sir.
Sabi ko, walang gagamit sa internet nito. Ako lang. Ang gagamit, ako lang. Okay. Anyway, quick lang, no? Paano ba? Para sa akin, walang substitute ang tunay na halik. No? So the real the true experience, yung walang substitute, no? So ang problema natin is paano mo pararamdam yung halik online. Di ba? So challenge 'yon. So our learners ngayon, and even tayo our learners, actually, if I may be specific na directed to them, I think we need to as I think many of you have been already mentioning this, no? We need relationships more than anything else. Yung content, yung teaching strategy will just follow yun. Pero unless you have not established the connection, walang kwenta yung walang mangyayari sa learning. So yun lang po.
Salamat. So it's through connecting to your learners that you will become more inclusive as well kasi mag-empathize ka and you will understand their context better.
Kailangan nila kaibigan ngayon. Kailangan may kausap
Totoo.
ngayon.
Gusto ko yun. Salamat, Sir Benny.
Okay, thank you, Sir Benny. Sino pong gustong sumunod?
Okay, ako na lang, Sir Tujan.
Okay.
Sige po.
Ako not coming from any really theologians, but from an animation character. If you remember Dory from Finding Nemo, or when I'm frustrated, I would always hear, just keep swimming, and it's stuck like in my mind, and so for me, when I'm frustrated, it's pretty disappointing at times and overwhelming. But in my mind, it is just keep learning, I just changed that verb. And for me, it's really asking God in Christ or whatever faith that you have to give you the grace to do just that, to just keep on learning and keep on swimming.
Okay,
So
thank
there.
you. Thank you, Ma'am Rochelle. Keep on swimming. Finally, si Sir Tuj.
Yun, didikit na ako dun sa sinabi ni Rochelle, no? Keep swimming. No, gaya ng sabi ko nung una, no, na parang nung unang yabang-yabang natin si Benilde na sanay kami mag-online, no? Pero nung tumambad sa atin yung massive at global problem, no, parang bigla kang nalula ng ganitong kalaki pala yung problema. Pero yun, pag sinabi yun, just keep swimming, ginagawa natin to, hindi tayo ganun ka-sure pa kung may sagot na hanggang dulo, pero yung gesture ng paggawa natin, gesture to connect, gesture to establish authentic relationships with our students, it radiates hope. At yun yung kailangan natin. Pag tinigil kasi natin to, pag tayo pati bumigay at sinabi natin, wah, ganyan na yung attitude natin, ay baka end of the world na. So, parang nakakatawang isipin, pero ganun yung magnitude kasi ng problema natin, hindi dapat mawala yung hope. And learning is always that parang spark or candle that will always guide us through. Ganun lang. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Tujel.
Salamat, Sir Tuj. Sir Roger,
Yes.
parang sarap pang ituloy, kaya lang, syempre, kailangan natin siya i-cut.
Oo.
Itong mga kwentuhan na to, tumatagal to ng ilang oras eh. First, maraming salamat po una sa ating mga speakers, pangalawa, sa ating mga terps, sa inyo po, sa inyo pong attend. Salamat po trinay talaga namin i-accommodate yung mga questions, pero syempre pressed against time. So, ayun po, para sa mga susunod na mangyayari, I'll just invite Mr. Adriano again. And ayun po, maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. So, kung titingnan po natin yung naging focus po ng discussion natin ngayon about challenges, about our hopes, at sa dulo, nagkaroon din po tayo ng simple tips for providing inclusivity in online learning. So sa mga parents po na nanonood ngayon, pagpatuloy po natin yung partnership natin sa mga teachers, sa aming mga teachers, at sa ating namang mga teachers sa ating students, it's pedagogy over technology. And we must always get feedback from them. At sa mga administrators naman, of course, we need your support system. So, back to our host. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you ulit, facilitators at saka our guest speakers,
Thank
Sir
you.
Roger, Mr. Adriano. Thank you. Before we end, I would like to invite Ms. Nikki Templo Perez, the Director of the Center for Inclusive Education, to present the certificates of appreciation to our guest speakers, Sir Benny, Ms. Rochelle, and Atty. Jude, as well as her closing remarks.
Right. Thank you. This is so funny kasi parang kami-kami lang talagang nakakapagtrabaho ngayon. All right. So on behalf of the Benilde Student Envoys, the Center for Inclusive Education, the Center for Education Technology, and the La Salle College of St. Benilde, we would like to present this certificate of appreciation to Mr. Beni Alfred Estepa, Atty. Jude Latore, and Ms. Rochelle Martin for sharing their expertise at the Be Included Talks on Inclusive Online Learning this March 26, 2021. So ang pipirma po niyan ay si Trisha from the Benildean Student Envoys, si Sir Roger, Sir Tugel, pareho kasi silang Rogelio, I'm so sorry. Sir Tugel from the Center for Educational Technology, and myself. Myself. All right, so let me go on to my closing remarks na napakahirap gawin kasi habang nag-i-interpret, kailangang pakinggan ang mga speakers. Medyo mahirap yun at magsulat ng sasabihin. But sabi nga nila, an interpreter's brain, sanay na sa multitasking all at the same time. But anyway, thank you everyone for joining us today. At one point, we had up to 162 people joining us here on Zoom. And I think a number of our participants today are not from Benilde. I think most are from Benilde, but a number are from other Lasallian schools, other educational institutions. May nakita ko kanina from Cavite. Thank you very much for joining us on this Friday afternoon na naging evening na. Alam ko na medyo pahirapan tong mga oras na ito. Today, we shared with you how we do things in Benilde. It's not perfect. Far from it. Kitang-kita nyo, di ba? Nag-freeze yung video, nadi-disconnect yung mga tao. So, everything is still a work in progress. Pero, what's important, ang pinaka-importante, ay sige pa rin tayo. Patuloy pa rin. Padayon. I'd like to thank our presenters, our speakers. Salamat, Sir Beni, kahit na na-disconnect ng matagal, for sharing with us that it's not the amount of topics that you teach, but the depth of knowledge that the students gain, the depth of learning that the students gain. Salamat, Rochelle, dahil sa kwento mo, makikita talaga na kahit sa anong hinaharap na pagsubok, ang importante ay ang pagsubok. No matter what challenges we face, we take it head on. And salamat, Sir Jude, kasi in your presentation, you showed that when we design our lessons using UDL or Universal Design for Learning, when you keep your students with special learning needs in mind and design for them, it's actually all the students in your class who benefit. Okay. You know, inclusion is now the norm. When we went online, inclusion became the norm for the whole country, actually for the whole world. And we try to include everyone in the class, including yourself. Whether you are a teacher or a parent or a student, you also have to try to include yourself in the class. How do you include yourself in this class? Of course, your teachers, for the students here, the teachers are already doing what they can to be inclusive for you, no? Pero if you're a teacher, how do I be inclusive towards myself in class? Sabi ni Sir Jude kanina, you forgive yourself for stuff that you're not able to do. Ako, I would like to say na, thank yourself. Thank yourself that you've kept on going. So when was the last time that you ended class and gave yourself a pat on the back? Diba? Sabi mo sana, teachers, sa mga teachers dito, good job, teach. Good job, sir. Kasi kahit pagod, palaban. Okay. Fan po ako ng linya-linya shirts, by the way. Those are not my words. That's from a linya-linya. But I'd also like to, I was having a side chat with Sir Onyoy, and she was asking me about the whys and the hows of inclusion in online learning. And, you know, sabi nga namin, yung how, marami kayong narinig, no? Yung the tools, the apps, the way that you do so many things, the way you design your lessons. Ang how of inclusion in online learning, hindi yan parang baking. There's no step 1, 2, 3. Para kang nagluluto. And sometimes, It's so frustrating. I don't cook. When I ask a friend who cooks to teach me how to cook, sasabihin niya, lagyan mo ng asin, ng bawang, yan si Rochelle minsan, lagyan mo ng asin, ng bawang, ng kamatis, gaano kadami? Tansyahin mo lang kung ano yung panglasa mo. Ganun tayo. That is our how now in inclusion. Ang importante, ano yung panlasa ng estudyante mo sa ginagawa mo sa klase? Do you do apps? What if your students don't have access to apps? Do you do asynchronous or synchronous? Depende sa estudyante natin. So that's one thing that we hope that you took away from this session, na you think about how you can design things for your students, for all your students. And what is our why? Our why is because we want to make sure that no student, no child is left behind. Nawawalan man tayo ng idea kung paano natin sasaluhin ang mga estudyante natin, kung paano tayo magpapatuloy, and allow me to quote Sabrina Ongkiko. She's an elementary public school teacher in Culiat Elementary School, and she posted this on Facebook. Nawawalan ng idea kung paano saluhin ng estudyante, tumataas ang cases ng COVID, mas nagiging limitado ang galaw ng mga teachers, huwag tayong bibitaw. Hahanap tayo ng paraan para matuto ang ating mga estudyante. Promise. And that's it. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I'd like to thank, again, Sir Beni, Ms. Rochelle, Attorney Jude, Sir Tujel, for partnering with us. Thank you to BSE. Thank you to Sir Onyoy, who came today and gave a live opening remarks. I'm very thankful. Thank you to the deaf participants who are here. And good night and happy weekend for those na nag-sem break na sa school. Happy vacation. May we all have a meaningful, prayerful, Holy Week ahead.
Thank you very much, Miss Nikki. So yun, I would like to thank once again our speakers, Sir Beni, Miss Rochelle, Attorney Jude, and Sir Tujel for sharing their expertise sa topics. No? I would also like to thank BSE, CET, and CIE for making this possible. Nagtulong-tulong talaga yung tatlong units. I would like to acknowledge also the team behind this event. I-flash later yung photos namin. There. Thank you, Trisha Astoriano from BSE, Francis Gopez, Angela Balanon, Jeremy De Leon. Lahat sila, puro students, ang galing. Ang laki ng tulong. Mr. Adriano, thank you, and Sir Roger, thank you sa pag-facilitate. From CET naman sila, Center for Educational Technology. And yours truly, ako, Jemai. Once again, thank you. It's been a pleasure hosting this event. Yun. Thank you. Jemai, signing off.